Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. In this video lesson, we're going to learn how to mix violet using a limited palette. I introduced another color in here, which is more of my extended palette. We're going to go through the colors in a sec. So in a previous lesson, we covered off, bottled single pigment violets and magentas other than the Decor Americana, which is a craft paint, and then we learned how to mix our own just using a limited. I just had to get that in there just to show you the differences as to why I don't use a lot of these colors. So in this lesson, we're going to take our limited palette and then recreate different violets, because violet is just more than using blue and red. It's which blue and which red. So what I have here is I have the Decor Traditions. I have Phthalo Blue, Ultramarine Blue, Permaalizarin Crimson, Naphtha Red, and Naphtha Red Light. Now, Naphtha Red by itself is in my extended palette, so I don't use it very often. Then over here, I have the Decor Media Fluid Acrylics, Primary Cyan, and Primary Magenta. Now, Primary Cyan is just made up with Phthalo Blue and white, and we did the color check on the Primary Magenta. It's it's PV19, which is Pigment Violet 19. Although it looks red, it's a violet pigment. So we have a blue that leans towards green, a blue that leans towards violet, a red that leans towards blue. We have a neutral red. We have a red that leans towards orange. We have a blue that leans towards green because it's got phthalo blue in it. And then we have the pigment is violet, but it looks like it's a violet that leans more towards red. Okay. We'll just get started. So I'm going to start off with, this is going to be a big chart. Holy smokes. Okay, and white. I keep forgetting white. So I'm not going to do a huge value scale with these because I won't have the room. This is just to show you the varieties. So I'll start off with Phthalo Blue and Permaalizarin Crimson because this is my go-to. That's my go-to. Now this one here is going to be much different. That's not my go-to. Sorry, my go-to is Ultramarine Blue. Oh, idiot. And then we'll add white. My go-to is Ultramarine Blue and Alizarin Crimson. But yeah, this is obviously I put too much Phthalo Blue in that. So what do? I'm going to go into more Alizarin Crimson right in that value thing there. And the reason why it's more neutral is because Phthalo Blue leans towards green, and then you're having a red in there, so it's obviously going to knock it back. So what we have is a dusty violet. And then when you see in the next color that I make up, you'll see the difference. Okay? So you can see the ranges that you can get in here. Now if I take Ultramarine Blue with Alizarin Crimson, I don't have to use as much Alizarin Crimson. And I've done these charts so often, I don't need to put notes, but you should be putting notes on yours. And then I'm going to add white. So you're still going to get a dusty violet, but it's going to be a little bit more intense in the violet mixture because you're using a blue that leans towards violet and using a red that leans towards blue, or violet if you want to say that, but they're both leaning towards the same target. That's why it's a little bit more intense versus the one with Phthalo Blue. Okay, so now let's do Phthalo Blue. You know what, I better write these down. So, Phthalo Blue, Alizarin Crimson, Ultramarine Blue, Alizarin Crimson, Phthalo Blue, Naphtha Red, Ultramarine Blue, Naphtha Red, Phthalo Blue, Naphtha Red Light, Phthalo Blue, Ultramarine Blue, Naphtha Red Light. And we'll do the other ones after. I'm not going to go to the point of mixing the blues with the Decor Media Fluid Acrylics. I'm choosing these because Decor calls these primary colors, Primary Cyan and Primary Magenta. So Phthalo Blue with Naphtha Red. Naphtha Red is probably the closest neutral the closest neutral I can find. This makes a really nice black, chromatic black, as is. But we add white and we see it's way too blue. That's a gorgeous blue though. Let me just put that in there. Ooh. I like that. It is a little bit more violet. It's like a sky color. Let's add a bit more red in there. That may be just a little too much. Oh, there we go. See, these colors are me. They're more dusty. I mean, look at the color of this thing. They're more dusty. But you can shift these. So you can shift with single pigments as well, like the dioxazine purple and all that. You can shift those as well. But it's just a color, extra color you have to have. But if you want something really intense, then yeah, go with that. So that's with the phthalo blue. So you can see it's not much. It's a little bit more red here. I love that. So now if we take ultramarine blue and naphtha red. Naphtha red is very strong. And let's go here. I think this is a bit more on the red side. Add some white. It's still dusty. Okay, interesting. So when it looks like when we're using the phthalo blue, not only is it duller, it's definitely more on the blue side because it leans towards green, but we're using ultramarine blue because the ultramarine blue automatically leans towards violet. You're getting closer to a violet with these ones here. And they're a little bit more intense than the phthalo ones. That's interesting. Add a bit more white. That's a nice color. This is a very pretty mixture. All right. So now we're going to go to using phthalo blue with naphtha red light and ultramarine blue with naphtha red light. This is going to be something, well, I'm not a fan of these mixtures. And that's going to be your first pop quiz question. We'll wait till we get this up here first. And we'll get a value scale going. Off the bat, great chromatic black as is, but we always know you add white, it's going to be different. Oh, this goes way too blue. Okay, so, but that's a beautiful blue. That's because phthalo blue is so strong. So we really need to punch up that red. Naphtha red light leans towards orange. Gonna have to add white to that. Why are we getting such a dull violet with this? That's your first pop quiz question. Why are we getting such a dull violet? And why is it, like, not saying it's hard, but having to work a little bit extra hard with creating this mixture. Look how soft that is. That's your pop quiz question. Why was this mixture between phthalo blue and naphtha red light a lot more challenging to get it to look like violet? And now we're going to go ultramarine blue with naphtha red light. I automatically added a bit more red to that. But we'll see what we get. This is more of a violet that leans towards red. Very soft. So I'm going to add more blue to that. So your second pop quiz question is, why would the ultramarine blue and naphtha red light be really dull? Because it is. It's a much duller mixture. Add more red. Add more white. If you're thinking, if ultramarine blue automatically leans towards violet, then why is it kind of really dull with naphtha red light? And now the next two, and these colors here are what DecoArt calls are primary colors. We have primary cyan and primary magenta. Primary cyan is made up with phthalo blue and white, and primary magenta is PV19, which is pigment violet 19. So blue and some red. And then we're going to try to recreate this. I think this is a little too blue. Yeah, that's too blue. And I'm showing all the steps, that way you see exactly how I mix my colors. Now, I don't go to this detail because I know what each of the colors can do. But just to show you a typical color mixture. And you would do this on the palette. In the charts, it's great because you have the record. So I know, oh no, I need that more violet. I'm going to go in and grab a little bit more magenta. Come in here and bring that down here. And I can sort of see the true underlying color, but you know, I'm going to add a little bit more white to that. And doing this exercise, you're not going to have to do this forever. It's just until you can learn what the paints can do. You'll be able to do anything on the palette. That's a nice purple, isn't it? You know, and I hate acting through all this. I already know what these colors can do, but it's a nice surprise to say, oh, wow, this is really pretty. Every time I mix colors, I always learn something new. What I'm learning right now is that this mixture is going very far. So this is your pop quiz number 3. Why am I getting such a great value scale on this? Why am I getting such a great value? Took some more paint out of my brush, add more white. Why am I getting such a nice value scale? So there you go. You got your 3 pop quiz questions there. So if you had to choose your violet, you didn't have a violet at all, and let's say you're buying fresh paints in that, you can decide, do you want something softer or do you want something, sorry, wrong way to word it. When you're choosing your paints for something of a violet, do you like intense violets or do you like soft and dusty violets? Right there gives you an idea. If you want soft and dusty violets, then you can go for, you know, your regular limited palette. If you're liking this, but you don't want to go with a fluid acrylic, this is where we're going to get to our next experiment. We already know that, and I love this. This is gorgeous. It's still not as intense as dioxazine purple. It's still not as intense as that. But I love this. Well, we know it's phthalo blue and white. So let's take phthalo blue and white. Okay. And what red are we going to use? Well, it's made with primary magenta is PV19. And the PV19 that I use, I don't have a PV19. It's a red violet. It's a red violet. I use red violet, which really isn't in my palette of colors. So the closest thing is probably Quinacridone Violet. But that's PR 122. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to try it with this first. Whoa. I'm going to try it with that first. And then I'm going to go to Alizarin Crimson. Let's see what we can get. That's really nice. I like that. That's kind of pretty, eh? If we shift that a little bit more on the red side, I think that'll give us a little bit more of the actual violet color. It's close to this one. I like that. But see how easy it is to shift? So you can still get something intense. Or not intense, brighter. There we go. And then a bit more white. But because Alizarin Crimson is one of those colors that's really, it's still a red, but because it's still really vibrant, we did a phthalo blue with alizarin crimson here, but I didn't really do a lot of focusing on the shifting. Can I get it to look like something like this? Well, I'm gonna probably need a bit more white. Yep, there I added too much blue. Okay. Get a good amount here. And if we take alizarin crimson, get that in there, and start mixing little bits by little bits. What are we going to get? It's still a dusty color. But add a bit more red to that. Can we get that a little? Oh, there it goes, a little bit more purple. The reason why this color works so well is because primary magenta is a violet. It leans more towards violet, where alizarin crimson, although it leans more towards blue, it's a red that leans towards blue. It's not a violet. We can, though, make it work. But I didn't quite mix that paint well. Let's get a little bit of white in there. See the difference? Okay, so you're not going to quite get the intensity until you go with something that's more on the violet side. When you're looking at these, it's not so much the blue. We got to look at the red. It's the red, I believe, that makes it key as to where everything is shifting. So if you were going to do something, looking at this chart that we did here, probably the closest for any type of, violet. We could have taken this, probably added a little bit more red to it to see what would happen. I'm not sure how far that would go. But if you like something this intense, and you may want to look at investing in a red violet. I'm looking at my chart here. Where's my paint? Let me just go and get it. Hang on a second. Let's roll down, roll down, roll down. Oh. As you can see, it's definitely violet, whereas alizarin crimson, that's more red. So, that's up to you what you could do. If you had to make a choice, I would probably look at getting the red violet instead of dioxazine purple. Because with dioxazine purple, yeah, you can make a lot of different, you can shift it a lot of different ways. And we're going to be covering that in the next lesson. But to get the most flexibility, try to stick with your limited palette, and then you can add the red violet as something in your extended palette. That's what you could do. Let me try with Quinacridone Violet. Now, Quinacridone Violet, although it is a red, I have one more spot that I can use here. So if we take phthalo blue with white, I don't know if you can see that. And then let's take Quinacridone Violet. Definitely the key is more of the red. Okay, here we go. There we go. That's nice. I like that. So red is definitely what's going to shift it to make it more violet. So let's add a little bit more red to that. And a little bit more white. Here we go. Like that. That's probably one of my favorite mixtures right there. It's still got a little bit of intensity to it, but you still can get something. It's not as intense as the dioxazine purple. I mean, look at what you're working with there. Let's see if I can do that on camera properly. So that's the dioxazine purple. Here we go. So that's pretty intense. I'm thinking that's pretty close. That's actually not bad right there. So there you go. You got something to think about. So you've got your pop quiz questions. Now a lot of this that I just did here we're covering in the next lesson. So I'll expand a bit on that just so you can get some new material to work with. We are going to work with dioxazine purple though on shifting that to see if is it easier to shift dioxazine purple as your single violet, or is it more flexible if you're going with other colors. Now the other thing we haven't covered, but this is more in the advanced section of the course, all the mixes that we're doing here is with two pigments, one blue, one red, and then the variations. There's nothing to say you can't take phthalo blue and ultramarine blue and mix it with two reds. You know, there's nothing to say. But the more colors you introduce, the duller they're going to be. They're not going to be as intense. But experiment. You never know what's going to happen. All right? So, as with everything, if you're watching this on YouTube, go into the description, click on one of the two links for the community or the Facebook. Facebook is where I'm doing the majority of all my critiques and reviews, and post a picture of the chart that you've made there along with any questions, and we can give you a hand with that. And you've got the pop quiz questions to answer as well. So I'm going to clean up now, because now I'm going to get the next lesson is going to be about shifting violet on the color wheel, and that's the real nice one, because although this was, yeah, we mixed some colors and all that stuff, it's actually intentionally shifting it to get what you want depending on what you want to paint. All right, so until I see you in that lesson, stay inspired.